Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome. So my name is Kate Quinn, and this is So Steady Facebook Live on Sunday, Valentine's Day of 2021. So last week, we talked about clamshells, classic clamshells that are made using half circles. So I'm going to put my paper up there so we can make sure that you can see everything, and I'm going to get clipped so we can have our sound check. If the sound is good for you, can you let me know how it is for you? That way we can go forward, and hopefully we can see everything really good right there. Change our light just a little. So what are we talking about? Hello, Nan. Hi, Renee, Linda, Jerry, Helen. Hi, everybody. I love sharing all of this with you. Happy Valentine's Day. Honey's here with me. We're Valentining together. So he's helping me out as always. If you have questions, you can send those out for him and he'll pass it along to me. It's kind of hard for me to monitor the feed when I'm, watching what I'm doing. So he's always great at really helping out with that. So this is called the Clamshell Template Set. Now, we've already showed you two of the ones from last week. So the ones we showed you last week were this one right here, CC 1 and 2, and of course you recognize that from the sampler set. And then this one is the partner with the 2-inch clamshell and a 1.5-inch clamshell. So here you get 1, 1.5, 2, and 3 with both of these. And this one, it is the same as the one that's in the regular sampler set. So that's kind of unfortunate if you already have that, but still great products overall. And we shared a lot of that last week. So I'm going to pull up a couple of the other ones that we're going to use today. And these are called the Squat Oval. So let me show you. Here, we'll move this out of the way. I'll set that there so you can see the shape. And here's one more. So they're quite different. And this one to me is a squat oval, like it's long like this, but this one is squat oval the other way. It's really tall, and then it's got a really skinny base. So we're going to share just some of what these look like and maybe a couple of ideas. We may not go as long today, just because. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the markings really quickly. We've shown you this before, and when I was playing with this, I'll give you a little tip just so that you don't have to make the same mistake. For some reason, I lined this up on this line, and then my clamshell wasn't touching the reference line. So remember that your needle reference is this line, and the foot is going to sink down. Now, somebody asked me last week about what are these other reference lines. So what we'll try to do is play with that a little bit too, so you can see what is the option as far as using these different lines. Typically, we're not using these other lines when we're doing offset clamshells like we shared last week. You would mostly do these when you would want to echo these shapes. Usually when you're doing the offset, you want it to touch the one below. So if you are creating more space with this, then that's not usually how you see it with the offset. Although, of course, you could do whatever you want. So I see a couple people. Di Werner just mentioned that she has one of these squat ovals. So very fun. They look totally different. Let's just go ahead and we'll start. So I've created just some different space reference lines. This one is 3-inch, and then the distance here is 1. So we'll just start with the basics so you can just see the regular clamshell, how that would look with that. It is going to be much different than that classic style. And if you're looking for that design that is just a little bit different, then this might be that good option for you. It's not quite so classic. So you'll notice today I'm using a little bit different machine than I've used in the past. This is the Baby Lock Altair, and this is the Westalee foot. And so this is actually a long arm ruler. I know people are going to ask me, so I'm just going to say it out there. I don't usually use these thicker rulers with my Baby Lock Altair, which is a high shank. And that is because around the back, it may trip up a little bit. You'll really have to, number one, force this around the foot at the back, and sometimes it can cause some stitch problems. We are going to be using it mostly like this, so there's not much of the ruler that's going to be along the back. So I'm just going to fudge it, but that way if somebody asks, know that that is not what I recommend. I recommend the high shank so you can have more freedom and flexibility to move more easily. Here's the reference line right here, right on our line that we have. And again, hold in the clamshell that you're working with. We're not trying to stretch our hand and hold this whole thing. Just hold right here where you're working, and I might assist a little bit here to get around this little hump. Because it's squat, it's almost like it's a little squared off right there. So we're coming up to what I call this little square spot right here. So really hug that as you go in. And when you're coming back out, you sort of have to get around that to get to that next clamshell. So you're going to go ahead and just help feed that fabric with your right hand. And then if you're kind of in an awkward position, you can shift your hand down and get right into that hook right there. So again, you would just shift this down. These reference lines on the clamshells are usually really terrific, so easy to use. Make sure here that you're tucked in so that you get that proper spacing. And then as we said, right here where it's sort of squared off, just kind of go a little slowly when you first get around that, because otherwise the foot might just fly straight up and not hug that curve. So just make sure you're keeping it nice and tight. And then here, changing that pressure point so we get the grip right in there. Before I change positions, I'm going to show you something right here. This cutaway right here, this little flat spot, he is lined up with this reference line. So when we move him down, let's see if we can get lined up. I guess you can't see it. I'll go one up and then I'll show you. The way that they've trimmed this template, this edge right here would be lined up right on this line. So for example, we'll just show you. Like if we were lined up here, see right here? Let's scoot up. I guess we need to come back just a little. We need a little more room for you. There we go. Let's see if we can get in there just a little better. There we go. So this edge right here of the template, and this is true with many of the other ones as well, this edge is an alignment mark also. It's not just this. Right here as well can be used when you're lining things up. So that can be really, really useful for that. So let's go ahead. We'll finish the last little piece of this clamshell, which will put us up at the top, I hope. So you see right there, he's having trouble getting in. That's part of that whole long arm thing. So we'll just have to fudge that right there. So we're right at the top, and we can shift our hook up. And let me show you the alignment here as we do this next one. I love using the Westalee templates because I feel like the alignment is really fantastic. So I guess I need a couple more stitches here because I don't quite have it lined right up. This center line and this center line are going to line right up in the middle of the previous clamshell. And just like we talked about before, because these designs are sort of a partial circle, they're going to draw in this way, this way, this way, this way. So as we stitch along the line, you may want to adjust a little bit, and that's what those reference lines are so good for. They really help you see that. So if you're a lefty, this might be a better setup for you where you're controlling the ruler with your right hand on this side and then controlling the sandwich with your left hand, and you want to get yourself lined right up. So see right here, I'm looking at this line and I want to get that lined up. Remember that this first reference line and the edge right here of this is your alignment. So that's something that you can use just to make sure that you're in the right spot. All right, so we'll just do a couple more because we're gonna maybe put some little suggestions in here too. So we need a couple of these sewn out, lining up that top line, making sure we're right in place. Tuck that in, touch it right on the top of that existing clamshell. So right there, I'm touching, and then I can scoot down. I can check all my alignments, check this top row, make sure I'll have just enough to get in there. My foot control is slipping away from me. And I need some little grip tacks on the bottom for this little guy. I'm a sock sewer. Right now I have socks on. Who sews with socks? Anybody? I know lots of people out there who are barefoot sewers. So it looks like we might be having some connection issues. If the broadcast goes offline, we do have a big snowstorm in Albuquerque, and I won't try to reconnect. I will just have to cut it for the day, just because it's unpredictable right now as far as signal. So we'll just go as far as we can, and then if we get cut off, we'll just have to append it there and hopefully give you something useful for the day. So you can see these obviously look like a clamshell, but they're a lot shorter, right? Very much narrower right here. This is the 3-inch width, and you saw, last week our clamshells were a lot taller, but this is a nice little space in here that we could put a little design in if we want to. So, can you grab this for me? No, I guess it's in that big drawer. Look at me right now. On the blue side, go up 2, I think. I think it says between the line circles right there on the top. Yeah. Let's see. That one right there. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Yes, too many templates. I wasn't as prepared as I need to be. So I have these really cool between the lines. I absolutely love these, and any circle will do. You don't have to, use this, but if you have some different size circles, I think these make a really fun embellishment for a clamshell. So let's see you can always test it by sticking it right on there. That alignment right there is what you would use to line it up. So you would put this on and put your foot right at this center line. So we're gonna do that. And I can obviously fit this size in. This is the 1, but you could put a 1/2 inch in there, or you could put a smaller one. So we'll go ahead and just play with that right now. I think this is a good size for this particular shape. So we'll put that on. All right, let's tack this off. And of course, I would be outside the boundary. If I was done, I would sew into my ditch and I would tack everything off so that I have a nice clean edge. But this is a practice piece, so we're not going to worry too much about all those little details. So clamshells are a really great fill that you can use for large areas, and they tend to quilt up pretty quickly. One thing I would recommend is if you're going to do them over a really large area, I would put some visual reference lines. So, if we know that this is 3 right here, maybe I would make reference lines this way at about 6 inches across a space of a quilt. And if your quilt was 6-inch blocks, I suppose you could do that, but I tend to not want the measurements of my edge to edge to be exactly matching my quilt in case things go awry. Like if your quilt isn't exactly a 6-inch block, well, this would definitely show that because this is definitely for sure 6 inches. So I would try to offset the numbers. I wouldn't try to match the blocks that you have on your quilt, just for information. So I want to put this little guy right here, as we said, and I know that the foot is the guide, so we'll line it up here. That'll get us right into that space, and this would be a way that we would jump stitch, right, just like we've talked about in the past. So first I want to set my needle right in the existing design, pull up that bobbin thread, I use these little circles for so many different things. I use them all the time. And one of the fun things that I've shown from the Fun and Fancy is how we can make spirals with these. So this is the 1-inch size, which is the same size that's in the Fun and Fancy collection. If we're going to do this as an embellishment, I would go ahead and sew more than one time. So let me get to the top real quick and then I'll show you one more thing. So we've sewed it 2 times, and let's get you a little better camera view. We're kind of far out here so you can see. There you go. One of the things that a circle does is it trains you to get this round motion. So I'm much better at doing pebbles or spirals or different things because I've used this a lot of times. So right now I'm going to use the ruler foot, and I can put a cute little spiral in here. It is free motion, but you're using the foot as a guide, and you're going to come out in between. And here we'll just do a little stitch tacking right there. So you'll lift that up and your foot, and now we're just going to start moving down, and we can do another one. Because our thread is tethered right there, we won't have to go ahead and pull up the bobbin thread every time. We can just line it up, make sure that we're in that stitch area. We're lined up right here, and now I can use that same thing. So as I come in, I can start weaving my way in, and I'll weave my way out. And as we showed before, we want to sew it 2 times. So I'll go back this way around. That'll get everybody tied off, and then we'll just tack it right there at the top. So pick it up, loosen up that presser foot, and just travel. I've got a couple extra threads. I'm going to pull my starting tails, get those off. All right, and then lining it up here so we're right in the center. And then your foot is the guide. You know, as long as we can get right into that top stitch, I'm looking inside that little hook area, and then make sure that right here you're touching. Once the foot is set in position, then you can adjust to make sure the ruler's in the correct place. Okay, so because we have that circle sort of holding us in place, what it's doing is it's preventing us from going wonky. So it doesn't really matter what happens inside the circle, as long as we don't, just go really crazy, it's going to look fine because that outer boundary is nice and clean. So we'll just do one more. I think I'm trapped over there. There we go. So again, letting this alignment set the position as far as this space, and then getting your foot right in there, tapping it if necessary to make sure the foot descends all the way so you can make sure you can get right in your stitch line. So right as we come in here, we'll start working our way around inside, and you're echoing that same motion with that between the lines that you've probably have sewed a bunch of times. So then we'll tack it in just a little bit, and that means that at the top there of each of those clamshells there'll be a little bit of extra stitching, but it'll all look very symmetrical because they'll all be the same, and you're going to get a really pretty design out of it. So let's make sure I can get right into my stitch line, and then I'll do the next one. And you'll see, we don't have too much interference right here of the thread in the design. There might be a little bit, but not much. So this is actually a really great way to practice. So if you think about it, you just sewed the circle and then you're echoing it with the foot. I can't think of any way where you could be training yourself better, because this is the motion that you want, that going around like that, and you're reinforcing it a bunch of times. So Mary, this is the 1-inch circle, and I like the 1/2 inch a lot. I use the 1/2 inch quite often. It's really a cute look. Honey, can you pull up one of those that's on the floor, the blue one? It's got pearls in it that are 1/2 inch, and so we can show that as a size.
Like this one, okay?
Yeah, perfect. Great, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut this really quick so we can pull that up. And then I'll put the 1/2 inch up as well so you can compare the two sizes. But you can do this spiral in any size. I will tell you that for this, with using the foot as a spacer, the 1 inch and the 1/2 inch are both good to use with the foot. When you start getting a bigger circle, like bigger than 2, I think it's a little bit more challenging to do that. So obviously we have all these threads that we need to cut. So we'll have to trim them also on the back, but they're all tacked in. So nobody's gonna be coming out. And we did that essentially as a continuous design, so you didn't have to do a lot of stops and starts each time, which is really freeing and flexible. So let's get all these little babies out of here so we can see. All right, there you go. So that does give you the flavor of it. That's just one little idea. And the truth is that anything that you can fit in here, like if you have a mini Spinifex or anything that will fit in this space, even if it overlaps here, as long as it does it symmetrically each time, you can use that and just put some different variations in there for your clamshell. So this is the 1/2 inch size. Okay, so here's my fingertip, right? So this is about pinky size, I guess, right there, as far as scale. And then here, this is my thumb. So you can see that that one is quite a bit bigger. Okay, so those are just some ideas for how you can use that. All right, so let's see. So this is the traditional offset of this design, and then I'm gonna make a mark over here, and I'm gonna just show you a little variation of how we can sew this out a little differently. So let me grab my marker. Oh, thanks for your patience. All right, so if this was our edge right here, let me just mark that, and then I'm going to mark some lines over from that. People always ask, I'm using Fonz Importer. This is ceramic chalk. It has a refill. I'm not sure if mine will come out, but it also has an eraser, but I've used mine up, right? And so here, let's just make this as a straight line. And really quick, I'm going to mark over a 1/2 inch. See if I can get it aligned. Oh, there we go. That's much easier to see. We'll mark over a 1/2 inch on this one, and then we'll just do one more mark over a 1/2 inch on this one. Okay, so right here, this is the top. Oh, let's get you down. You can't see what I'm seeing. Ooh. There we go. That's much better. Okay, so we just marked a couple of reference lines that are staggered a little bit. And right here, this was the top of that squat oval. So we want to line it up in the correct height, but we're going to offset it, which creates some little challenges. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do. We are still going to line it up now on this line, not on this one, but we're going to start moving it over just a little bit. So we'll put this line right there, and we're still going to try to line up the tops a little bit. But the thing that I want to make sure is, notice how right here it's not going to touch the clamshell at all. Let's see if you can see that. See, this is open right here. We actually have to go down some. So this line, and let me get a little arrow sticker so I can show you that. We're going to use one of our little ruler markers, and we're going to use that as the visual reference each time that we align this, so that we know what we're looking for, because otherwise we won't touch the clamshell below if we don't. So let's see, we're right on the line right there. Okay, so there's this long line right there, that one. And we're going to make it touch the bottom right here, And what that allows is as we offset it, we can sew into this one where the foot can actually touch the clamshell that is in front of it. Okay? So why are we doing that? It's just going to change the look. So I want to make sure that this is straight all the way across. So just an option. I got to wake my machine up. It kind of goes to sleep. All right, let's tack this in a little so it'll stay. Hopefully that little thread right there is going to go away. There we go. So just sew until you touch. Even if your foot doesn't go all the way down, we are manipulating this design, so don't worry about it. As long as it touches, that's what we're looking for. We're not trying to make it, perfect. So just get in until you touch. And now we can scoot down, and we're going to use that same reference line. So that little arrow right there, we're going to line that up right on the bottom right there, and we'll make sure that this side's lined up too. That's what's going to get us straight, and that gives us enough room to come right in there. So just sew until you touch. Once you touch that clamshell, then don't go any further. Okay, and then same thing. So that little ruler sticker has become super paramount to get us lined up and help us have the exact right spacing. And I didn't do any math to figure that out. I just looked for something that I could consistently use, and that line was already lined up on the base of the clamshell when I did this design. And I thought, oh, perfect, I'll just use that. Let's see if we can get you a little better view. We're definitely getting on and off of the camera today. Maybe we need to work a little smaller space so we're not quite getting so far out of your view. But I'm going to flip it around and we'll show you what's happening. So right now what it's doing, it's staggering the clamshell. So they're not lined up right in the center anymore. So let's just tack this, and we'll do just one more row so you can kind of get an idea. Maybe we won't do all the way since I think that's pushing the fabric too far out of your view, but we'll do a little bit here so that you can see how that stagger impacts. It kind of looks like it's moving. It's got kind of a rolling look, and I just think that that looks really cool. So let's do one more. So remember that this was the center, right? We staggered it over a half. So this time the center of the clamshell is going to be on this line. And then we'll use that same relationship that we had before. This line is going to touch the bottom of the clamshell. And then I'm going to just check and make sure that I'm lined up on this side as well. So this is the reference. We are making it a 1/2 inch each time as we go. And then this is not changing. This reference line is not going to change. So that's just a simple way that you can do it. And you can create spaces in between. They don't have to touch. So if you wanted to use more space right here and create a gap in between these clamshells, you could do that. That's totally fine. It's up to you. So let's put our foot down and let's make sure I'm all lined up. And I think I am. So then we'll sew. And we'll just do a couple more so you can kind of see it. So the sewing's not that complicated. This is really more about the reference itself. And then just sew until you can get in. Align it again using that same reference line. You want to be right on the bottom of the clamshell right there so that we can definitely sew in right there. We're looking for that line right there to be hitting the bottom. So it looks like we need a slight adjustment right there. There we go. This line right along the base. You can see where this little V is right there. That line is actually right along that V right there. Okay? So this is that whole thing about random rules. Random rules does not mean that there's no rules or that we change the rules every time. Random rules means that we create some conditions that are repeatable so that we can create symmetry in the design so we can sort of repeat whatever's happening. Okay, so we're done. I won't do too much more on that one, but I think here you can really see as they start to move over. Once we've done a couple of them, you really see that they kind of give you this line that is going to be like this. They're going to have this diagonal reference line. So you can change that spacing, whatever you want to do, and it just really creates a lot of motion. So I really think that's a fun option, a fun variation for you. And I'll do one more. We're going to use this other side, and we'll do it more like a little border style. It's really cute. I love it. So these tools can also be used if you're doing arcs in a small space, like if you have squares. We know that the base right here is 3. So if you, for example, had a 3-inch square, you could use this as a scallop around the inside of the block, and that would be perfectly measured for a 3-inch square. So that's just something that you can do if you have some of these. And if, say, it was less than 3, you could always pull this down a little and make it shorter so that it will fit the curve. And then maybe it won't fit right on this line, but maybe it would just be a little bit above it. And you can just use visual markers then by checking the edges of the block and making sure you have a 1/4 inch. So this can be scallop for anything. And this is a little bit deep, so this would cut into the block pretty nicely. And you may even end up with a little bit of overlap here because this is very a wide angle. This is definitely more than the 45 right there. So you'd get little tiny overlaps on the corners right there. All right, so here's another one, and maybe we'll just use the other side. We'll go back into the same space, but we'll just do it opposite. That way we won't use up all of our space. So I'm going to get myself right in my reference line. Set my needle. Again, remember that the reference line you want is this first line, right? So if my needle is not correctly positioned, make sure that you've got everything lined up on the right line. I don't know why I tend to go awry with this one. I think it's a visual thing. I think it's deeper than it actually is, but I've had to correct myself a few times. So this first line is the line that your foot is aligned with, and this little tip right here is also a good alignment. So I'm going to hold in the clamshell while I'm working. I've moved my fingers down to support where I am. And then same thing here. This finger on the outside can essentially activate that grip even if you're not right on it, because this is a good pressure your thumb is exerting right here. So we'll just do 2 rotations of this so we can kind of get a flavor for the design. And I'll show it to you before we add any embellishments, so that way you can see just how it looks plain. Tuck it right in there. So recently I had somebody was asking me, do I use speed control on my machine? Ooh, ouch, sorry. That hurt you watching? We'll come back up to the top here. I'll do a couple of them at the offset so you can see what the shape looks like. Ooh, look. You guys want to see? I nicked it. Hit it pretty good. Keep your fingers out of the way. So here, tuck it right in there. And again, those reference alignments should allow you to line right up. So this first reference line is going to go right on the top. And if you can't get them all lined up perfectly, maybe just do one and then readjust the next one. Remember what we said, if you need to adjust, always on the top. So this one actually looks really good as far as its alignment. It's this one right here that we're coming up on that doesn't look as good. He's not quite aligned just so. So I'm just going to manipulate him and get myself back in line. All right, I'm going to tack this off because I'm going to use that bottom row to show you my little embellishment thing that I've got. So this is the size. You can see these are much narrower, so that's basically my 1 finger right there. This one is about 3/4. It's a little narrower here, and the base is 2. So it's pretty fun. I like the size, I like the shape. Let's go ahead and tack this out. Get that bobbin thread out of there. One of the things that you can do with this one, or any of them really, even the regular clamshells, that makes really a cute border, is instead of moving up, you can just move over. So it kind of is a variation of the stagger that we just did, but it's halfway. This one, we're moving over just a 1/2 inch at a time for each row to create this sort of shifting mountain, right? But if we move a certain amount, a particular amount, we can line this up on this first reference line, right? And we want to come in the middle. So what we want to do is line up this center line right on the edge right there. And that's going to perfectly align us right in the middle of everybody else. So then I'll set my foot right in place, do a few tacking stitches. I'm going to pull in a little. I'm getting kind of far away. My floor is so nice and smooth that my chair wants to roll away. So right here, we'll come right into the middle. And tuck it right in, and then shift your hand, and we're again right in the center, so we have a really good visual for this. And then I'm going to rotate it so you can see how it turned out. I love that, and this would be so fun. You could put a fill in here, and I think it would be pretty easy to sneak around with this. You can just come up. You can even use your ruler to sneak back up here, and then maybe just do some kind of fill in here. You don't have to take your ruler foot off. I never advocate that. I always use my ruler foot. And then you're already at the next one. I think we need to sew a little faster. The needle kind of prevents us from moving. I think sometimes if we're sewing too slow, then the needle can't exit the fabric fast enough to keep up with us. So have a nice steady rhythm. And then one of the things you can do is, if you wanted to make your border wider, is you could do one on each side so that they are kissing each other. I would use reference lines to align them. And then we'll get to that last one. I'll stop because we don't have our border right there so we can see it. But just by putting some simple things in there like that, you can create these as like a little space right here, and then this would be your border. And imagine if you had one on this side that was matching, then you get this little space in here with the little scallops right there, and you could do something else in that space, or you could do nothing. It's up to you. So these can all do that. All you're doing is you're offsetting by 1/2, but you're not moving forward. So you can leave that open, or you can just do that really pretty stack like that, and I think it looks great. Okay, let's move on. All right, so we'll move on to that next one. So let me just show you what the next one is. Right there, this is very, very similar. You know, it's a little bit more squared off, and that's really just about the transition. It is very much this same shape right there, okay, just smaller. And it's the same as this one as well, just smaller. So I won't show you this, but know that it's just going to be a different size. This one is 1/2 inch by, I think, 1.5. But then this one is really different, really different. So I'm going to go ahead and just do some designs with this real quick. And then that's probably where we'll leave it for today. Okay, so we'll use this as a reference line and just get our needle and everything centered right there. So I'll anchor that real quick, and let's see if we've got, let me look and see what questions we might have. Oh, I see. Somebody responded, yeah, they're a barefoot sewer. A lot of quilters. So I have socks on. I'm not a slipper sewer, but I definitely, and some people are shoes. I mean, it's a great controversy, right? Whatever you're comfortable with, you're more likely to sew happier, right? So, yeah, so I'm going to comment. Dee mentioned that it looks like rolling hills of snow. It is snowing here right now. Somebody else mentioned that they felt like it was like ocean waves. That was Nancy Ferguson. So Nancy, I want to see what you think of this next one, because I really think this one would make terrific waves. And I think that you could do them not symmetrically, like you could do a little wave and then you could do another little one here and then another one over there, and they don't have to be connected, and you could use your jump stitch method. And that way it's not based on this whole symmetry of a clamshell. You can just put like some little piles of waves on this side of your sailboat and then a little more down here and a little bit over here. And I think this really definitely looks like that. So it's got a little start anchor spot right there. So you line that up. And remember, again, we want to make sure that we are allowing this line in the middle there as that reference. And the foot can descend down into these little gaps and the needle will be lined up right there. So did you guys notice? I have different grippers on there. So these are the Sarah Diddy butterfly grippers, and we're testing them out. So they're really thin. Let me show you. See how thin they are? Compared to the stable tape, very thin. So I don't know if these are good to mix. Probably not the best because they're gonna change that, but whatever. We're just gonna go with it. So this one is so tall, and right when the foot gets to the top, it's like it's teeter-tottering on the edge, and it's just gonna go down into the valley. So here, don't stop at the top, just get around there so that you can keep everybody connected. Not too fast. Here we got a hug, 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 but get right around there. So I think with this one, if we try to sew a little too fast, we end up with like a little skip like I just got right there. You really have to just go ahead and let it sew. And as we get on this side, essentially I have to push back so that this sandwich is touching. So let's see if I can explain that a little better. So right here, the ruler is pushing against the foot right here. So super easy to control right there. By the time that I get to this side, like right there, I have to pull this forward and this so that the ruler stays in contact. It's actually 100% opposite, and you're doing it in a very quick turnaround. So right now I'm pulling towards myself so I can stay connected. Now, by the time I'm down there, I'm going to be pushing the foot against this. So I'm, pushing the ruler against the foot. And already by the time I'm right there, there's no pressure on the ruler right there at all, because the ruler is down there and the foot's kind of floating. So by the time we're right there, I've got to pull that ruler forward to maintain that connection with that plastic. So keep it nice and tight right there. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll just do maybe a couple more. We won't do an infinity. So try and find that nice rhythm for yourself, where you're, not feeling like it's running away from you, but you can still control the design. If necessary, here you can also do this. Just pinch this a little bit. You're not trying to pull the fabric, but it does give you just a little bit of something to hold on to there, so you feel like you have a little bit more control. So as I go here, I gotta let go a little bit so I won't pull my fabric. So let's show you what we got, what it looks like. We showed you technique. Now let's show you cute, right? So here's the little wave right there. If you use it upside down, love it. It's awesome. So cute. So how do we stack this one, right? It's going to be the same. You've got all of those intermittent reference lines and pretty easy for us to align. So let's go ahead and do it. So let me show you one more thing. The part that is down at the bottom, this part is this part, right? The foot is going to go down and up. It's not going around that. So this sharp point is this part down at the bottom. When I was playing with it, I was like trying to see if I could put another shape in there so that I could mimic that. Well, it would be backwards. You know, you have to go this way to get that V. So let's come back up to the top, just like we showed you in the past. We'll be in the middle. Let's double check. Pretty good. So then we'll do it this way. Get your top lined up and get your reference lines right in the middle. And then we should be able to do this one halfway to close that. And now we'll go this way. So it looks like mine is a little bit too far down. I can see there's a little gap. So I need to push the foot up and make my alignment a little tighter, because otherwise I'll sew down into the clamshell below. So I'm gonna see if I can just adjust that. Here's those two hands. We can use those to help us if we need it. Oh, I think I'm off. Let's see. See if we can show you. Oh yeah, we're definitely off. Okay, so let's fix it. Let me show you. Let's get you in there so you can see what I'm seeing. Can you see right in the center of the clamshell arc, right here? See how we're not quite lined up? We're about, I don't know, 2 stitches off. So here on this one, I'm going to sew up to the top right here. And I'm going to shift this over a tiny bit. And it'll have a difference on that one. But then as I get to the next one, I should be back online again. Because this tip is so much shorter than the other clamshell, it might be a little bit more visible if you're making a correction on this one. So let me pull it off. I'll show you. So can you see that that one right there is just a little tiny bit bigger than this one? So you will see any correction that you make on this one a little bit more than a broader clamshell. You can see this one is just a little bit wider, because those 2 stitches make a big difference here to how pointy the peak is. But if I sewed another 20 or 30 of these, nobody's going to see that and nobody's going to care, right? So let's do one that is an echo. So let's just scoot over a little bit. And we'll use this same reference. I guess I need to come up a little bit. And we can try to put these guys right in the middle. I guess I'm having trouble getting aligned. I'm trying to use this same reference line and use the lines down here, but I guess I have to come up further to do it. There we go. There, see? So now we can use these other lines that are on here. And we've lined it up right on the bottom right here on this one. So we'll kind of get ourselves seated properly. And then hopefully we can make a little echo right here. Coming down until we touch. Try not to sew beyond the stitch line, because we're just trying to create a very shallow echo. So the question was, these other reference lines, like on here, that would be something that we could use where they wouldn't necessarily touch. So I guess I didn't have mine perfectly lined up, but see how you're coming in until you touch? So this one wasn't straight across. But this is what you can use these additional lines for, just to create sort of that echoed impact, right? And then maybe you're not able to sew all the way down in here. It depends on where you're lining things up, whether you can or not. You may end up touching or not touching. It really depends. So maybe mine was a stitch off so that I would come right down in the middle. So I would want to use these same reference lines to line everything up if I was going to do that. All right, so that looks kind of cute. I kind of messed up right here, but I like that. I think that looks fun. So we'll just kind of like stitch down right there and close that off. That's the end of the visual field, right? I would totally use that. Don't you think that looks fun? So then you can also, if you offset these like little moguls, you can make them go this way, and then you can come back and go this way. You can create a little zigzag and create a whole 3D with your little moguls. They look awesome. All right, you guys. Well, as I said, today is a little bit shorter, so we're not gonna just keep going into infinity. I wanted to just share that you have a lot of different options for clamshell, and I'll just put up one more. We haven't really sewed much with it, but it's long and skinny, and it doesn't have as many reference lines for aligning. So it's not like you could really echo more than just the 1/4 inch unless you made reference marks yourself, like, you know, whatever this spacing is. If you made lines like that, you could move it up to there. But it's pretty shallow. This is a 3 inch by 1/2 inch depth. So you can just do long waves with this. And that would be something you can do. And let me show you the other side. The other side is a really cool straight edge with a bump stop. So if you were just wanting to ditch, you can line this right up a 1/4 inch away and then sew right down until your foot hits the bump stop. And then you can just realign it with your spacing gauge and just sew to infinity. So this could be a great tool for ditching as well. And this is the last one that is in that clamshell set. So I'll just put them all up here for you to see all of them. And something I did not clarify, but I'm going to just show this. Let's see if I can show you. See where it says SOC1H? So this is half of the Squat Oval template. If you bought SOC1, it's twice as big as this because this is half size. And that's just something that's in this clamshell sampler set. They tend to have a little bit shorter ones, which I like because they're hand size. But if you bought SOC1 by itself, you're going to get a much longer template. So let me grab those other two. So there's these 5 pieces in there, and that's in this set. And then today we also used the between the lines, and we highlighted the 1 inch and the 1/2 inch, right? So this is somebody that just adores clamshells. You can get these, but you can get all of these longer. These are all half size. So that if you bought just the regular ones, like if you like the 2 inch one, you're going to get a much longer ruler with more of these clams on it. So then you won't have to readjust your position as many times. And then, as I showed you, this is our between the lines circles. And all these lines on here, what they allow is they allow you to align in a channel. So you have the center line and a reference line here, but say you had like 1 3/4 or some odd spacing. You could literally center your space between different lines and keep your circles right in a channel. And that's one of the big benefits of this between the lines tool, right? You can see, and it doesn't mean that you can't use it in a circle, because I'm just going to scoot these out and I'll show you the ones that I used on here. So I worked on this yesterday, this piece. This is some future thing that we're looking at, but I was able to put these in between this channel using the guides on that between the lines circle set. So you can see that could be really valuable if you're trying to put circles in there, even if your channel isn't straight. But if your channel is straight, they only touch in one place. If you have a curvy channel, you're going to sew around until you touch and then come back to the next one, because you won't be able to complete the circle fully without stitching into the one before it on a curve. So you can use it for straight or for curvy, and that's just an option for you as well. And those are on my affiliate link page. Okay, you guys, let's see real quick. I'm just going to scan, make sure if I got any burning questions. Yeah, good. Echo Guide is great. I like to use the Echo Guide. If you have the right size circle, I do feel like it's easier to do it without it. I feel like I have more control, but obviously the purpose of the Echo Guides is to give you more size options. So I'm going to just show you something real quick about that. If I want to sew a clamshell with the Echo Guide, I'll pull this back up here and I'll grab one of these. All right, so let's just sew a tiny bit of this real quick, and then I want to show you something about the Echo Guides with the clamshell. So hope you'll bear with me as we do this. I think this is important because it came up. So if I'm using one of the between the lines circle and I want to use an echo guide, I think circles are an excellent place to use the echo guides at any time. Okay, but if I'm in a clamshell and I want to put an echo guide on, like right here, let's just put this one on. You're going to go ahead and put the thread right through the little opening, and then you'll lower your foot. You're kind of seating this right around the foot, and then let's see, make sure we're centered. Then I can push this down, and then I want to make sure that this is all the way seated on the foot so that the echo ring isn't dragging below the foot. But let's say I wanted to do this clamshell right here. So I'm going to get this on there. Notice how if I'm sewing in with the clamshell, there's no way the clamshell is going to go dipping in right here. That's just not possible. So you're going to get this to fit in the dip, but you're not going to get sort of the full impact. So I wouldn't try to create a larger echo with the echo rings for the clamshell. You can echo, but you're not going to be able to get the fullness in here if you're doing that. It's not going to dip in, and that's okay. That's just something that I think it's important to know. So for example, we can try to put this up here. Let's take this one off and we'll do the bigger one and try and see what happens with the bigger one. Just wiggle it off gently. That little pass through, the thread can just come off. I'm just going to pull this back so we can tighten up that thread and get this on there. Line it up so that it can be right in line with the hole. And then make sure you can push it all the way up. So these fit really well on the Westalee. Here we would be making the edge of the arc touch our stitch line right there. So we'll try and line it up again. So it's going to go right in the dip there. So this will make a nice echo. You can see as long as we can line it up in those centering spots, we can change the spacing really nicely and echo, but it's not going to give you an actual clamshell where you're touching down into the other one. So if you just wanted to create some spaces between different lines, this would be a great way to do it, and you could use the exact same size. You saw that we just lined it up right here on the center reference lines. We kept the little V aligned right on these, and that's what gives us this look right here. So you can definitely use these, but don't think you're going to get a clamshell. They are going to just create an echo, and they can't really create this shape exactly because you're sort of appending the circle way up high. Okay, so let's see. Maud, here is an answer to your question. Let me grab one thing. So I think these were the Fonz and Porter marks. So let's get you down here so you can see that. Maud's question is, how do you get the Fonz and Porter chalk marks off? So this right here is the boheen chalk. And if I just rub that with a little scrap of fabric, this actually will just come right off. The boheen chalk, I think, is really, really easy to remove. But the Fonz and Porter takes a little bit more effort. So I have a gum eraser, and I can just actually erase it with that. And then I can either brush it off or I can use a lint roller to get it off. So it does take a little bit more effort. I do tend to get those marks off before I would wash it or anything like that. I just prefer that. But definitely the boheen, I wish it had a finer mark. You can sharpen the boheen marker to get a little bit finer mark, but it's too much work for me. I can't do it. All right, let's see. So in case anybody's asking, my thread today is Fantastico, and it is number 5070, which is a 40 weight polyester thread, and I'm using a 9014 top stitch needle by Schmetz. So let's see. Well, there you go. Thank you guys. I'm so glad that you liked the ideas, and I hope you'll try some fun stuff and embellish your clamshells and have fun with it. I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye, and I hope you guys have a wonderful Valentine's Day and a fun, happy meal and a good celebration with somebody you care about. So have a great day, and I will talk to you guys next week. I do have some information coming up about the wedding ring quilts. I'm going to have an informational session on my Facebook page where we talk about what the requirements are, what the yardages are, and when the class will be. I'm a little bit behind the power curve with the move. I thought I would have everything ready, and I don't, of course. That's how it always is. So maybe I jumped the gun on that a little bit, but I am having it. So it might be just the early part of March, just to give me a little bit more time so people can register. So I will post that on my page. And if you have any questions about that, I've already gotten some emails. I'm happy to answer those questions, and I try to help anybody with anything if they have questions about what their setup is or what they need to do for ruler work. So have a great week, and I will see you later.